Hey, what's good? I don't know if I ever told you, but Disney's Robin Hood is my favorite movie ever. It's a great story, solid animation, and the voice acting is among the best ever. When the Spider-Verse movies came out, they were instantly added to that same list for all the same reasons. The difference is that with these movies, with the Spider-Verse movies, I'm able to connect with the main character, Miles Morales, because he's also a Latino kid with great potential growing up in the inner city. This video from Vox is taking a look at how the Spider-Verse movies forced animation to evolve. I'm going to be working on some warm-up sketches. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get some clothes I think would look good on you. Let's go. So yeah, Miles Morales and that whole Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse and multi-universe type of thing. Oh boy, it is so good. That whole, right now they only have two movies out, but that whole franchise is just, oh, it's so outstanding. I love it. Let's get into it.
Pixar, the studio behind this and this and this, has mastered a sort of photo-surrealistic style, where there's a sense of cartooniness, but most things look and feel like they could exist in the real world. Like these fibers on Mr. Incredible's shirt, and the tree stump and grass in this scene from Up. Or the glimmering out-of-focus bokeh behind Bo Peep. And it's not just Pixar. These movies look so similar, you can barely tell they're from different animation studios. But when you look at these movies, it's clear that something different is happening. These lights don't just illuminate, they reveal a texture. This tree in the background isn't out of focus, it's just got a simplified look. And this hair looks more like brushstrokes than human hair. These films are part of a new trend that's steering animation away from replicating the real world and into somewhere new.
I love the mashup of 3D and 2D. That's the animation and storytelling environment, or profession, whatever you want to call it. That is going to be, like he's saying, it's super. It's going to change and evolve animation, because now number one, just about anybody can do it. If you can go get a copy of Blender for free and jump on YouTube and you can be animating in, no time at all. And not just that, but the combination of 3D and 2D, you have a lot of very talented 3D artists that don't necessarily know how to draw, and vice versa. You have some 2D animators and 2D artists that are reluctant to go into the world of 3D. And Blender specifically, because I have experience using Blender, are going to be are helping push animation a little farther, and we're starting to see it with these Spider-Verses. And on Netflix, The Mitchells versus the Machines, that's another fantastic movie. If you have Netflix or have access to Netflix, watch Mitchells versus Machines, and it's a great movie, and a great style too.
Crafting beautiful animation in CG films requires a lot of dedicated artists to perform specialized tasks, like rendering. Rendering is the process by which a computer takes geometry, textures, lighting, camera inputs, and does a bunch of math to apply that information into a final image, like this one. Most render engines, like the one I'm using here, are physically based, which essentially means that it tries to replicate the real-world physics of light, shadow, reflection, and more. You can see this type of rendering all over Pixar's work, even going back to their first movie.
And that's the
Rex
benefit.
looks like
That's the benefit of doing things in 3D. You can just change the color of a light. So when you're doing things in 3D, you have more flexibility to make something in more of a filmic way, right? So if you want to change colors of something, you have to change the lights instead of changing the color on the actual character, So 2D is fantastic. I love it. It's what made me want to be an animator, made me want to be, make movies and stuff like that. But 3D adds a layer of complex ease, if that's a good way to say it. It takes a complex process, but it makes it easier. But using that complex process, for example, setting up, understanding the relationship between red, blue, yellow, green lights, whatever lights, and how that affects what we're seeing on a stage. Yeah, it makes that easier. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Let's get back into it.
Exist in the real world.
Every meeting we would have, everybody brought up like the Pixar look. The Pixar look was something that was, very high.
Back in my epic multimedia days, everyone wanted me to build things like Too Advanced. TooAdvanced.com was a website of a team of amazing artists and animators and stuff. And they made incredible projects. But then everyone wanted that style, and then all of a sudden everything looks everything looks like Too Advanced. But, same thing here. Pixar pulled off a render, or the look of these films, and it was different and everyone loved it. And all of a sudden everything started looking that way. And so when something like Shrek came out, it was kind of jarring because they didn't go with the cartoony cutesy feel. Everything looked a little more real, but still, it was still, very, very cartoony in a more realistic way.
Very successful at the box office. So everybody kind of wanted the Pixar look. And my name is Christos Obretnov.
Christos is the CEO of Lollipop Shaders, a company that builds custom shaders and plugins for 3D software. He's worked on a ton of films, including Life of Pi, A Christmas Carol, and the upcoming Across the Spider-Verse. But before all that, he worked on a bunch of films that tried to replicate that Pixar look, because it was reliable, popular, and safe.
Already doing a feature film is, a lot of money and a lot of time. So they were kind of chasing that Pixar dream of having that kind of a success. So to go and spend, $100 million or more, the investors and whatnot, they probably are saying it's got to look like Pixar or Disney, right?
And that was the case for a long time.
Isn't it funny how people with money don't? People with money a lot of times don't have vision that it takes to make something incredibly cool, so they play it safe, and that's why you have like this, whatever movie version 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, and they just keep on beating the hell out of it. It's going to be a fantastic day when creative people figure out that it's time to make your own money, so you can make your own projects, so you can push the boundaries of animation. We get to do that. As the creatives, we get to do that. When creatives finally figure out to support other creatives, it's going to be a wonderful day. I see it coming too.
When studios wanted to try something different,
Disney would come up and interview for a movie that ended up being called Bolt. They were showing us this really cool concept art, and they're like, oh, it's going to be super stylized. It's going to look like sort of like the concept art. And it was very exciting. I was like, oh, this is great. And then when the movie did come out, I mean, Bolt is fantastic, but they made it, very, that same look.
Movies like Monster House
good.
and A Christmas
It was
Carol
cute.
were
I
intended
liked
to
it.
look stylized too, but ultimately, they settled back into that tried and true physically based rendering look. There were glimmers of more stylized approaches in short film tests and
Paperman,
small sequences
I
like
forgot
in
what that
Disney's
was.
Moana, but
Moana.
this stylized
Again,
sequence
2D,
is only
3D
about
mix
30 seconds
is
out of the
always so
hour
much
and
better.
43-minute long film.
A lot of studios have been playing with this for a long time, but to take that risk to do a full feature film that's very stylized in 3D, I think people were scared.
and that fear kept studios from making bold choices. Until 2017, when the trailer for Into the Spider-Verse dropped.
It had
what
simplified
a wonderful
graphic
day.
bursts that
Look
felt
at that.
like comic book panels. There
It's
was
a
no
mix
motion
between
blur
2D, 3D, comics, painting, motion graphics. Like, this movie was so good. And I think those are the Jordans that I have. I might have the one with the black around the toe. Anyway, again, look at just this one still frame. I I have been dressed like this, even with, I believe with those sneakers, if not, something close. That same hoodie, jacket, outfit, waiting for the train. I'm about to go play basketball. You know what I mean? So that's my world. That's how I grew up. That's why this movie means so much to me.
The field and everything from the characters to the environments was full of texture. According to one of the animation
Mixed
supervisors
texture,
for the
too.
project, after a year and a half of work, the studio was still nervous that people were going to hate the visuals because they felt like they were taking too many risks. Instead of leaning into the safe, physically based rendering look, into this
People don't know what they're going to like. You know what I mean? I mean, it's always going to be like a risk to do something different, but you have to give people the opportunity to possibly like something. And that's why I love independent filmmaking, because the independent scene doesn't care about losing trillions and trillions of dollars on something. So the independent scene will go and take those chances and push animation and push, just like Parasiter and Cigarettes. Robert, I'll think about it. But the director and artist, Robert, that wrote and directed Parasiter and Cigarettes, he animated that whole thing in Photoshop. You want to talk about taking a chance on something? That's it. And studios just aren't necessarily ready or want to take that chance because it's the bottom line. Everything, the focus, instead of the art, the focus is always on how much money are we going to get. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not. What I'm saying is that's one way to think about it. But if you, as a fan of filmmaking, want to do anything different or take risks, like dip your toes into the independent scene, come on in, man. They're doing some really cool stuff. I'll talk to you guys about this later, but there's a whole crew a whole movement where a bunch of independent filmmakers are getting together for 48 hours, and you have to write, shoot, edit, and deliver a short film in 48 hours. And they build teams of, a bunch of people that do whatever slot they're filling. And you might be a writer, but one day you might be a grip, So I'm going to be taking a look at that and hopefully be making content off of that too. But anyway, let's get back into Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse chose to use non-photorealistic rendering. To pull this off, they essentially had to break their physically based renderer. Instead of inputting data from lights, cameras, and materials and receiving a realistic-looking render, they combined all that data with custom data passes that tweak things like the focus plane or the way the light worked in an image. This combo allowed the renderer to produce stylized results. For example, in Into the Spider-Verse, out-of-focus elements aren't blurry. Instead, the colors split as if the screen printing on an actual comic book was done poorly.
Look how they incorporated the comic.
Lighting and shadow were approached in new ways too.
Look
Light
at that.
often
That
reveals
is so
half-tone
genius.
dots,
That is
and
so
shadows
cool.
create sketchy hatch marks. But
Yeah.
there's more than just shading magic happening.
Illustration techniques.
Non-photorealistic renderings often use line work, 2D elements like speed lines and doubles, and variable frame rates to pull these frames further away from reality and often closer to the concept art.
So cool.
Just 2
That's
months
so
after
cool.
its release, Into the Spider-Verse became the highest grossing film
Well
Sony Pictures
deserved.
Animation had ever made. It
Yeah.
doesn't hold a candle to Pixar in terms of lifetime gross. Incredibles 2 sits at the #1 spot while Spider-Verse doesn't even crack the top 50, but much like Pixar did in the
Give it
first
time.
wave of CG animated features, Into the Spider-Verse redefined the visual goals for animation studios. 2021's The Mitchells vs. the Machines and 2022's Puss in Boots take non-photorealistic rendering in a different, more painterly direction, where out-of-focus objects become simplified shapes, emulating the
That's
way
such a
artists
cool
may
technique.
use simplified
Yeah.
marks and backgrounds. In The Mitchells vs. the Machines,
So yeah, the Impressionist movement pissed everybody off because back in those days, they're still painting. They're trying to paint like realistically and stuff like that. And the Impressionists came in and just started splotching paint somewhere, and people were like, "What the hell is that?" And he's like, "It's a flower, or it's people walking, whatever." It's a really cool technique, though.
Shadows create different marker textures. Puss in Boots' simplified 2D cutaways mimic the graphic bursts of Into the Spider-Verse.
People were like, oh, this looks really good and it's different. So now, like, all like future projects at studios from DreamWorks and ImageWorks and Pixar, and like, you know, they're looking at the next, whatever, 5 years or whatnot. It's all like very stylized.
And that's really exciting, because non-photo realism allows animated movies to take advantage of the thing that makes them special. They can be anything the imagination allows.
Yep. If you get a chance, if you haven't seen it yet, the Spider-Verse, there's 2 of them. I believe if they haven't scheduled a 3rd one, they're afraid of making money. But this is what influences me. This is everything that I've ever wanted to do, even as a child. This is the culmination of all of that. Being able to take stories from the inner city, animating them, filming them, whatever the case may be. Taking those films and producing and making those has always been a dream of mine. And now that software is available and approachable and affordable, Blender is amazing what you can do with Blender. And as a matter of fact, you're going to see an animated short coming from me that's animated in Blender. We're able to use Blender to recreate the techniques that they're using on one of my favorite movies ever. So you know I'm going to take advantage of that. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me, watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button. And then the little bell, change it to where it says all, so that way every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.